Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you today on our first recording on a series of recordings that are going to be preparing you for your competition and also will help you to develop your minimum viable product as well. So my name is Maha Tantawi. I'm an assistant professor of entrepreneurship at Odette School of Business, University of Windsor. And the title of our session today is Problem Identification. And I'm very excited to walk you today through this very important topic of your entrepreneurial journey. So I'm going to be starting by asking you a very interesting question. How many of you who is listening to this recording have ever thought about having an idea, a very creative idea, for a product or a service that you want to come up with, and you think it is a very creative idea and it can potentially turn into a very innovative product or service that people or your target customers are going to fall in love with and ultimately buy? I guess many of us listening to that question now would feel, oh, I have a very creative idea, and I think if this ever turns into an innovative product or a service, everybody would fall in love with. But is that the way that we really need to think about whatever we're coming up with? Do we really need to focus on idea generation and generating creative ideas that would turn into awesome, amazing, and innovative products and service? Or do we really need to focus and think about the problem that we are trying to solve and identify? So again, should we really focus on problem identification or idea generation? So why problem discovery is very important in entrepreneurship? Why do we really need to focus and care about identifying the problem? Problem identification is very important for you as an entrepreneur to have this product market fit. Because at the end of the day, you want to come up with a value proposition, a unique value proposition that would address a problem, a pain, a gain, a need that your target customer wants. So, and that's why we say customers don't really buy products. Customers don't really care about buying your product and paying money for you to have profit. Customers buy solutions to problems. And that's why problem identification is important, because you want to have this nice, smooth product market fit. Here is the product market fit that I was talking to you about right now. As you can see, some of you may be aware of this business model canvas with the 9 components here. What we are looking for is to have this nice product market fit between the value proposition and our customer segment. So we want to ensure that whatever solution we are offering is addressing a problem, a need, a pain, or a gain that our potential customers are dealing with. Otherwise, customers will not really buy your solution, and you will not be able to generate any revenues, and you will not be able to make ultimately any profit. Because at the end of the day, particularly if you're talking about a for-profit startup, or even if you're talking about kind of a social enterprise, your ultimate goal is that you're offering a value proposition that your customers really value and really are in need for. And that's why I will relate that to our discussion about problem identification, that we care about problem identification rather than idea generation. And that's what I meant by when I earlier discussed whether we really want to focus on generating creative ideas or identifying problems and coming up with a solution and developing a minimum viable product that will address that problem. So problem discovery is an essential component of the customer discovery process. And that's why we say that we focus on problem identification. What do we mean by customer discovery? Oh, customer discovery I guess you can understand what it means from the terminologies we're using here. So customer discovery is about understanding your potential customers, understanding the problems that they are struggling with, understanding their needs, understanding the pains that they are going through, or the gains that they want to have. How can you understand your customers? What do you need to do? You cannot really understand your customer while you're staying inside the building or thinking that you have a very creative idea that all people will fall in love with. The only way to understand your customers is to get out of your place, get out of the building, talk to your customers, try to empathize with them, understand what they are going through, so that you come up with a solution that is addressing their needs and problems, pains, and gains. Okay, so we have agreed now that problem discovery is a part of the customer discovery process. And the customer discovery is one component of the customer development process. So what the customer development process is about? The customer development process starts with customer discovery. And that means from the terminologies here that you're defining your product vision or your solution here. And then you're talking to your customers, try to understand the problems that they're going through, their pains, the gains that they are hoping to accomplish. And based on that, you're going to be developing your solution and minimum viable product. And that is exactly what you're going to be doing in that competition, developing a minimum viable product. After developing a minimum viable product, you want to validate it with a greater number of customers. So you talk to a certain number, but you want to validate it with a bigger number of customers to ensure that this minimum viable product that is basically your solution is addressing the problem that your customers are having. And so potentially they're going to buy it. So in customer validation, you are testing with a greater number of customers, preparing a sales plan and accomplishing initial sales. And then you're having customer creation. You're creating your customers, okay, and then you're building your company at the end. So after customer validation, we have the customer creation, where you as an entrepreneur is going to include a heavy marketing campaign, and then finally you're going to end up with your company building, hopefully. So that means transitions from temporary and search mode to operational mode. So what are the core components of your problem discovery? You're going to state a hypothesis. Like, for example, I assume that customers are going to buy my very tasty lemonade or whatever solution that you're having for $2, for example. So you're going to state any hypothesis here. There is no particular hypothesis depending on your solution. After you're going to state your hypothesis, as we have said, you want to discover your customers, and that's part of the problem identification. So what do you need to do? You need to go out of the building and talk to your customers. How are you going to talk to your customers? You need to be designing interviews. You need to be having focus groups. You need to be conducting surveys, in-depth interviews, right? You need to be conducting different experiments, because what do you want to do at the end? You want to understand your customers and capture their insights in order to come up with a solution that is addressing a problem that they have. And always remember, when you're testing the problem and you are discovering your customers, and problem identification is part of customer discovery, as we have said, that you're trying to understand what the pains that your customers are going through, what the gains that they want to accomplish, what are the needs, what are their problems. For example, if you want to come up with an app that would shorten the waiting time at the ER in the hospitals in Canada, you want to understand the pains that the patients are going through when they go to the ER room and they wait for 7 to 8 hours. So what are the pains that they have? They're going through physical pain. Also, they're going through emotional pain, Maybe someone has to wait in the ER for 7 and 8 hours, leaving their kids at home. So they are emotionally having an emotional pain here. They're having a physical pain, but they are in pain because they are in pain and they're waiting at the ER room for 7 to 8 hours. So you want to come up with an app that would help the hospitals and the medical system here to address the pains that the patients are going through. Maybe the physicians also in that context are having a problem that they have to oversee many patients in a very and they can't really oversee many patients in a very short period of time. So this is the pain that they are having here. So how can this app help both physicians, for example, and the patients as well, if you are targeting both as your potential beneficiaries here? What are the gains? For example, maybe you want to come up with an app, for example, that would enable customers to organize their financials very effectively and efficiently so that they can have more spare time to spend with their families. Or you want to come up with a place, for example, or a solution that would make families entertain together and spend some quality family time together. It doesn't have to be an app, by the way. So I'm giving an app as an example, but it doesn't have always to be like a technological kind of a solution here. So we in that recording, we have talked about problem discovery in general. We didn't really specify it to AI because problem discovery is problem in discovery. Whether you're using AI, whether you're not using AI, it is an essential component of the customer discovery process that is part of the customer development process, and that is an important component of your entrepreneurial journey. So problem discovery is not only associated with AI. But what about having a quick overview? How can we relate problem discovery using AI? It is not different at all, but we're trying here to kind of relate it to AI by one slide finally. But at the end, problem discovery is problem discovery. Again, even when you're using AI to develop your minimum viable product and you are going through the problem discovery, as we have said, you need to understand your customers, understand their pain points, observe the users, conduct experiments, conduct surveys, whatever. And then you want to validate your market, as we have said, by customer validation, explore evidence of demand or inefficiency. For AI, number 3 is specific here because you need to assess whether the data exists and AI can generate value or not. And then you want to scale it for social relevance. These are the references that I use. And at the end, by that, we have come to the end of this recording. I hope that you'll find it useful and you've enjoyed it. And we will be having a series of other recordings that will help you, as I told you before. And for now, I'll let you go, and I hope that you've enjoyed this session. Thank you.